Well, I recently sold a car. Julie was extremely happy when I told her I was selling the Superformance S1, because that would mean one less car in the garage. Unfortunately for her, the car behind me turned up. Picked it up on auction on Cars and Bids, probably paid more than it was worth, but less than I was expecting to pay. So I think that's a good thing. It's a 2003 Audi TT 225. I had one of these when they first came out, and I've been wanting to get one to replace the car I sold. I really regretted selling it. This one is in immaculate condition. It's got just under 100,000 miles, and it's blue, which you don't see very often. Most of them are silver. Mine that I had back in the day was silver with a blue interior. This one is blue with a yellow interior. Now the car is somewhat dirty at the moment. I've had it a month now, and it actually rained the other day, which is really unusual for here. So we'll take a look at it after I've cleaned it. But that's the interior, and just look at this thing. It's immaculate. Now, to be fair to my long-suffering wife, I did warn her that I was buying this one, so this one wasn't a surprise, not like all the other cars I've bought on auction. But then when she saw it, she said, "I cannot believe you bought another blue car." Because I think I have 8 blue cars in the garage. I have to keep some of them under wraps so you can't see their blueness. But this one's actually red, the one at the top. That's my TR3. Actually, it's my son's TR3. But that's the blue Lotus Elise, the blue Beck Spider, blue Audi TT, blue M5, blue M Coupe, another blue M Coupe, a blue Boxster, and, well, at least there's some orange on this one, my blue Westfield. And I've even got a mostly blue scooter as well. And then there's the trusty Lemon's car, which is black. But I am thinking of painting it in the Gulf blue colors to match my Westfield, so we'll see about that. It will be a rattle can job, though, if I do it. But I think it would actually look pretty cool. But I digress. The reason why we're here today is I bought a tune for this car, because the one I had back in the early 2000s, I had chipped, and it was fantastic. Now, I haven't driven this one much, and I was surprised at how strong it was. And the previous owner said, to his knowledge, it hadn't had anything done with it. He was the third owner, and he owns a shop, and he'd been doing all the work for the second owner, and he said that person, there's no way they would have had a tune on it. But I was surprised how strong it felt. So anyway, I bought this tune to flash the ECU, and with a lot of back and forth with the company, who have been fantastic. It's Motoza. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but I'll put a link in the description below. They've been great, and we decided to run a log just to see what this car was doing, and it's producing about 16 psi of boost, which is more than original. So the general feeling is it's a stage 1 tune on this. I bought a stage 1 plus tune from Motoza. And the other thing that led us to think that it might have a tune in it was when we tried to read what was in the ECU, it said it was blocked and could not read. So that tends to suggest something's been done to it before. We're hoping it hasn't been chipped. If it's been chipped and we try writing to it, the chances are that it's going to brick the ECU. But let's go ahead and do it anyway and see what happens. So I learned from my previous attempts at flashing an ECU with my BMW M Coupe here, that you have to put the battery on a battery tender when you're writing to an ECU. Otherwise, you do stand a very good chance of bricking it if the power runs out. So I can hear young Barkley moaning. Where is he? This is our puppy. I can hear him. I can't find him. Barkley, where are you? Oh, there you are. Hi. There's Barkley. Yes, believe it or not, that is a puppy. And he always wants to play. Anyway, as I was saying, you need to hook the car up to a battery tender, which I have done here, so that will ensure that the battery won't die while we're routing to it. And I'm going to hook up my Surface Pro to the ECU, switch off the radio, fan, all the stuff that can cause voltage spikes, and we will try writing to this ECU. Right, so we are connected. It's showing down here that we're connected. It's picked up the ID of the ECU and the engine type, and what we're going to do now is we are going to write to the ECU. And here is the flash file. So it asks you to make sure the ignition switch is on but the engine not running. Battery tender, okay, so let's hit OK and see what happens. We're not allowed with VAG functional addressing. Well, that's a good start. So let's try connecting a different way. Settings. Let's try VAG 1281. I'll come back to you on this. This is my third attempt. I changed the connection type to 1281. It wouldn't work. Then I tried again and it's saying it's worked. Now we're on sector 4 of 19, and what they told me was if it was going to have a problem, it was going to be between 3 and 5, which is exactly where we are at the moment. So we're on 5. And it looks like it's going okay. So this looks like it's working. It got past sector 5 and is on to sector 6 of 19. And it's a little warm in here. Sitting in the garage in the car, and it's hot. But I guess we have to sit here and just watch this work. This is still looking good here. We're on sector 11 of 19. Just enough time for me to make a cup of tea, I think. And while we're on the subject, I couldn't not do this. I'm British, I like tea, and I play golf. So it's a TT. Well, this is better news than I had with the M-Coupe. It says it's successful. It did the last few sectors really quickly. Now you have to switch the ignition off for 5 seconds before starting it up again. So I'll unhook everything, leave it switched off. Let's do that now. So ignition is off, and then we'll start it up. Well, hopefully we'll start it up, because on the M-Coupe, it kind of told me that it had written okay and then the engine wouldn't start, but it was because we had the wrong flash file. Anyway, the next steps are to drive the car for a bit so it can learn its new programming, and then we take a log file to see what it's doing. So here we go. This is the moment of truth to see if this flash worked. That's my happy face. So now we have a stage 1 plus tune installed. Next steps, drive the car a little bit. We'll do that a little bit later when Julie's home to look after the dogs. But I think it was a success, which is nice to know. Now, what they have suggested to me based on the log I sent them of the car currently, there's 2 things. One is to upgrade the injectors, because they say based on the performance it looks like, I think they said cylinders 3 and 4 are looks like the injectors are struggling. And they also suggested a spark plug upgrade. So I'm going to upgrade the injectors to 550 cc's. They're currently 440, I think. And I'll check the spark plugs because I know those were changed fairly recently, so those may be fine, but at least I'll take them out, have a look and check the gaps on them and see what kind they are, whether they're copper or iridium. So a little bit about this car. Why was I happy paying more than I felt the car was worth at this point? Well, mostly because all the major work that needs doing on it has been done, including the timing belt. I believe it had a new clutch. It had a Haldex service. All the things that need doing have been done. There was a new flexible downpipe fitted. There's quite a long list of work that was done on this car, and it is in fabulous condition. There's one or two little dings on it. The interior is immaculate. One area where these do tend to corrode is along these rails. These have been repainted, so that was a good thing. There's no sign of any rust anywhere else, even though this came from Pennsylvania. You can't see it here, but there is a slight discoloration in the paint in a strip along this side, which I feel, it looked like it was just tape residue, but it won't come out. And the previous owner told me that he had taken the rails out to have them painted. In terms of problems, I asked a lot of questions on this auction. This was on Cars and Bids. I asked a lot of questions, and the answers that came back were very comforting. Now, the person I bought it off had bought the car off one of his customers. It was a college professor who'd had the car for many years. He'd been doing all the service work on it, and he felt it was such a good car, he bought it himself, continued to do work on it, and then finally put it up for sale, and I got it. One of the questions I asked him was about the micro switches in the windows, because they typically fail and the window doesn't drop and so on and so forth. So he said, yeah, no, they're fine, the window drops. And it does. You can see there the window drop and then pops back up. The only thing is on the driver's window, if you bring it all the way down, so whether it's on the auto down or you bring it all the way down on the button, it forgets the programming and you have to reprogram it. I mean, it's easy to do, to reprogram the stops on the switches. It's a bit of a pain, but not a showstopper at the moment. And then the other thing was that really surprised me, when I started to drive it, I noticed the power steering was making a funny noise, as if there was no power steering fluid, or if the power steering fluid was low. Checked it, and lo and behold, it needed a top-up of power steering fluid. So I did that. No sign of any leaks anywhere, so that's fine. What else? I got a couple of really pleasant surprises. I guess I hadn't paid enough attention to the listing, because one of the things that surprised me, this car has HomeLink, which I didn't realize. It did say on the listing, but wasn't important to me. That was a really nice surprise that it had that. Then I clicked on the eject button on the stereo, and there was a CD in it. I got a free CD with the car. And then I was looking for the owner's manual, which I'd forgotten I'd put in the safe in the house. And I was looking in, there were two little cubby holes in the back. And I remember these being on the car, and I remember the one on the passenger side being for the medical kit, which is there and complete. And I figured that this one would be a good place for the owner's manual. And look what I found. There's a 6 CD changer in this, and it works. Now all I have to do is find 6 CDs. So that's about it. This car, and now we found that it did have a tune on it. The previous owner said he had no knowledge of the tune, so it must have been the very first owner that had the ECU flashed. It was maxing out around 16 psi, and with the stage 1 plus, we should be getting closer to 20 psi, and like the profile is different, so how it delivers power should be different. If it's just as good as it was before I flashed it, it will be amazing. This car has so much torque, it's incredible. The stage 1 plus tune changes the torque from 205 to 275, which is a huge gain. Horsepower isn't as much. It's 225, obviously that's what these cars were called. I think it takes it from 225 to 265 on 93 octane, and I live in Arizona. We have 91 octane. So I won't get quite the performance boost that you would do otherwise. But the great thing about Motoza is that the tune is customized to your car. So they'll look at the logs and they'll take into account the fact that I live at 2,900 feet. They'll take into account the hardware in the car, and they have suggested, as I said, an upgrade to the injectors and the spark plugs, and then they will update the tune to reflect the higher volumetric efficiency of the injectors once I fit them. And they've even offered to sell me an open box set of injectors. Can't complain. And then if I want to increase the turbo size, improve the intercooler, they will update the tune. Obviously, I'll have to pay for it, but it's a live tune. It's not just taking out the ECU, which is what a lot of companies do, and replace the chip. So I'm quite excited about this. So next time you see me, we'll be driving the car and we'll see what it does. Here we are on a little post-flash test drive. And this is really just to make sure that the car is learning the tune, I guess. So it's like just a 15-20 minute drive, driving normally. It certainly doesn't feel any less powerful than it did before. I'm not sure it feels more powerful. I will have to say, acceleration in the second gear is absolutely awesome. It is so cool. But it was doing that before, so it's a great car. But the beauty of this tune is that it will grow with the car. As I upgrade the injectors, better spark plugs, and then in the future, if I want a bigger turbo, better intercooler, the tune can be adjusted to account for all those things. So was it worth it? Who knows? At least I know what the tune is that we've got in there now, and we'll be able to look at the logs, we'll be able to look at how much boost it's producing. It looks like this tune is not a failure. I won't say it's a success, because I don't think it's improved the performance of the car tremendously. I suppose the only way of really knowing would have been to put it on a dyno before and after. It certainly doesn't feel worse than it did before, and it pulls very well in second and third gears. And there were a couple of areas where Motoza was showing some concern about the top end and the amount of advance that was in there. So at least we've got a good starting point now, and we know what's in the car, and we can work from there. And I just have to give a shout out to Lindsay. She's been great. It's Lindsay from Motoza. She's been extremely helpful, very responsive, very customer focused. So it's been a great experience, and if it wasn't for her, I probably would have pushed for a refund on the tune before I put it in the car, knowing that there was a stage 1 tune already in there. But I think that working together, we've decided the best thing to do was to proceed with this stage 1 plus tune. So let's see where we go from here. Still my happy face. So that's that for today. Success, I think. In other words, the car still works and is in one piece and there's no smoke coming out.